Here's the deal. You don't watch college basketball. You don't even care about college basketball. But it is March Madness, and your office is doing a bracket. And suddenly, you really, really just want to beat Steve from accounting. I got you. I am not a basketball fan either, but I always tune in for the NCAA March Madness tournament, and the brackets were just announced. And so we were going to do a breakdown here with the help of ChatGPT to get us caught up on some things that we missed throughout the season. So that way you don't have to spend an irresponsible amount of time researching this. Okay, if we lose, just shrug and say, well, I listened to some guy on the internet who was using ChatGPT and AI. No harm, no foul. I'll just simply take the blame for you. I'll take that hit. But if you win, you get to walk into that office, stare Steve down, and remind him who the real winner is. And that is going to be completely worth it. So here we go. I want to give you, first of all, a rapid rundown of everything of all the teams that are in the tournament. And so I'm going to run through this super fast. If you want to dig into this more, absolutely, but it's definitely not worth your time to do so. All right, the number 16 seeds are in the Please Remember Us clubs. They generally are not going to win, but here's a little background on St. Francis Red Flash. Their coach has been part of their program since 1996, which means he has been repping the Red Flash longer than most of his players, or maybe all of his players, have been alive. Alabama State Hornets, they started the season looking dead in the water. Then they won 10 of their last 11 to sneak in. If that's not a textbook case of procrastination paying off, then I don't know what is. Mount St. Mary's Mountaineers, they finished fourth in the MAC, but still crashed the party like they own the place. And the American Eagles, their best player is a fifth-year big man who went 2 for 24 shooting threes early in his career, all the way up to 41% this season. That is some good improvement there. SIU Edwardsville Cougars, when their coach was hired, he hung a huge pair of scissors above the locker room just in case they made the NCAA tournament. Turns out it did. Maybe that was real manifestation. Norfolk State Spartans, their opponent in the MEAC conference, forgot the score, committed a game-losing foul, and literally handed Norfolk State a ticket to the dance. March Madness is dumb, and we love it. All right, the 15 seeds that we need to know about here really quick. Bryant Bulldogs, they're coached by Phil Martell Jr., son of the legendary coach Phil Martell, because Bryant believes in strong bloodlines. Robert Morris Colonials, the Horizon League's best player, shoots threes better than some NBA prospects, but nobody outside of Pittsburgh is paying any attention. The Wofford Terriers, they were below 500 in conference play, then randomly caught fire in the tournament and definitely made a run here. Omaha Mavericks, they weren't even eligible to make the NCAA tournament until their opponents in the Summit League were disqualified. This is March Madness equivalent of you getting a promotion because your boss was fired. All right, the 14 seeds, Lipscomb Bisons, after shooting poorly from three during the season, they have caught on fire from February and beyond, hitting over 40% of their threes. The Montana Grizzlies, they're starting five, scores like an NBA offense, boasting 114.4 offensive rating. But we don't care about numbers like that. Doesn't matter. I guess it just means they score points. All right, the Troy Trojans, their coach was fired by UT Arlington despite winning 72 games. Since then, Troy has improved, but UT Arlington has not. Looks like they made a wrong decision there. UNC Wilmington Seahawks, this is their first tournament bid in 8 years, and their coach is already receiving job offers. That's how it goes. All right, the 13 seeds, Akron Zips, they have been on a tear, only losing once recently. Their standout player has been consistently dropping 14 points a game. High Point Panthers, they have one of the longest winning streaks in America at 14 games. They clinched the Big South title. Grand Canyon Lopes, they're definitely one of my favorite upset picks for this year. After winning their conference tournament, they celebrated with fireworks inside the arena. Hey, that's how we do it. And the Yale Bulldogs, they beat Auburn last year and somehow have improved this season, and people assume they just got in because of their brains or because they're in a weak conference, but always pay attention to those Ivy League schools. They love to cause some chaos in the tournament. 12 seeds, UC San Diego Tritons. They won 15 straight games And they are in the tournament in their first year of eligibility. And so no one told them they couldn't be there. So they showed up. Liberty Flames, their conference title game got delayed by a leaky roof. But they still won. So I guess sometimes you just got to learn how to roll with the punches. McNeese Cowboys, their coach was banned from college basketball and LSU for NCAA violations. And now he's leading a mid-major powerhouse. Colorado State Rams have been steamrolling teams for months, and they look like they could have a star who wants to take over this tournament. So let's see what happens there. The 11 seeds, Drake Bulldogs, their coach went from a D2 legend to D1 Cinderella builder like it was a piece of cake. San Diego State Aztecs, they went to the national title game last year, and they're just an 11 seed this year. So I don't know. Can they have some magic again? VCU Rams, another team that's known for making some chaos in the tournament. Their coach was the one who helped upset the number 16 UMBC over Virginia quite a few years ago. So he knows what he's doing, as well as that program as a whole. Xavier Musketeers, they have one of the best shooters in the country. And so there's a good chance that a good shooter can catch fire and ruin someone's back bracket. Texas Longhorns have a future NBA star in Trey Johnson, but they also have the basketball consistency of my Wi-Fi signal. So, not the greatest thing. And the North Carolina Tar Heels, probably the butt of many jokes that you will see if you do any research. They have RJ Davis, who is an elite scorer, but this team has spent their entire season playing like they just woke up from a nap. All right, then the 10 seeds, the New Mexico Lobos. Their coach is Rick Pitino's son, and he's finally working on building his legacy. Vanderbilt Commodores, they play no defense, but who cares? Defense is optional because they shoot threes like crazy. It's like a Golden State Warriors cosplay team here. The Utah State Aggies, they lost their best player and their coach, and yet somehow they leveled up. So defying all odds. Arkansas Razorbacks, one of like 14 SEC teams in this tournament. They spent the season in a never-ending injury crisis, and they still made the tournament. So they're like that zombie team that refuses to die. All right, then we got the 9 seed, the Creighton Blue Jays. Their star player has won 4 straight Defensive Player of the Year awards. That is not something that would normally happen. The Baylor Bears, they're a team full of NBA prospects, but they kind of forgot how to play basketball in February. Let's see if they can remember in March. Georgia Bulldogs have the youngest projected NBA lottery pick in the tournament, and he has an opportunity on the big stage to show the world. Oklahoma Sooners, they beat Arizona, Louisville, and Michigan, but had a sweat-out selection Sunday. So came in as the 9 seed. All right, then the 8 seeds, Louisville Cardinals. Their new coach literally went around campus begging people and begging students to come to games. Was he desperate? Possibly. Effective? Also, I think that worked for them. Mississippi State Bulldogs haven't done anything amazing this year, but haven't completely embarrassed themselves. And sometimes, if you're in a power conference, that is good enough. The Gonzaga Bulldogs are not a top seed for the first time in forever. And honestly, I always like Gonzaga as an underdog story much better than as a favorite. So we'll see if they get some of their old school underdog magic back. The UConn Huskies are going for a 3rd straight national championship. Seems highly unlikely, but man, if they could pull it off, it'd be crazy. All right. Then the 7 seeds, Marquette Golden Eagles. They haven't beaten a top 50 team since January, but who cares about that? I mean, that's what last year was for. St. Mary's Gales, their coach has been at the school for 24 years and spent most of it making Gonzaga's life miserable. UCLA Bruins, they were called soft by their coach earlier this season, and somehow they actually got better instead of crumbling under that. The Kansas Jayhawks have the talent of a 1 seed, but the vibes of a 10 seed. So approach with caution on how you're going to pick them in your bracket. All right, the 6 seeds here, we have the Ole Miss Rebels. They treat turnovers like a myth. They rank among the best at holding onto the ball, not giving it away. BYU Cougars, the best player that is coming to them isn't even there yet. He's still in high school. Get all set up with an $8.5 million NIL deal. I need to get me one of those. Illinois Fighting Illini. Somehow they're actually better than last year, even though they lost some of their key players. And the Missouri Tigers, they turned last season's train wreck into an SEC powerhouse. because they have learned the power of the transfer portal. All right, our 5 seeds here. Michigan Wolverines, you're going to see them. A lot of people feel like they were underseeded here. So will they respond well? Their entire offense runs through a couple of 7-footers. If this works out great, they could definitely make a run. Oregon Ducks, they joined the Big Ten, just like in football, and somehow managed to make a big impact right away. So elite schedule manipulation because they dodged playing most of the best teams more than one time. The Clemson Tigers played so well that their coach got an extra $20 million and some job security there. The Memphis Tigers, their coach had custom sneakers stolen off his porch, and that is even less dramatic than this tournament run that they want to go on. The 4 seeds here, we have the Texas A&M Aggies. They rank dead last in offensive efficiency among all the top 6 teams, but they keep winning. And honestly, that's all that matters in these things. You just keep winning. Just keep winning. Arizona Wildcats started out 4-5, then won 13 of 14, then lost 5 of their last 8. Are they good? Are they bad? Are they just whatever? I don't know. Always kind of scary to mess around with teams like that. Purdue, they lost Zach Edey. They keep on winning, but their defense is not holding up right now. So they're going to need to figure that out to make any sort of tournament run here. Maryland Terrapins, the Terps. Their best player is Angel Reese's brother. There. I don't even know his name but Angel Reese's brother. They won 11 of their last 13 games. Family bragging rights are on the line here. All right, then we've got our 3 states. The Iowa State Cyclones, they started out 15-1, then they completely forgot how to make a shot, but they still have an elite defense. However, it was announced they just lost Keyshawn Gilbert for the entire tournament. That's a brutal loss. And so maybe they can rally together, but they might also be packing their bags early. Kind of pick them at your own peril. The Wisconsin Badgers, their star player transferred in after playing for a team that lost 19 straight games. So he is obviously happy with the decision that he made. So they are highly dependent on shooting and hitting threes. So we'll see how that plays out. The Kentucky Wildcats, they've beaten 8 top 15 teams, which sounds absolutely amazing until you realize that they've also lost 11 games. So boom or bust, boom or bust. And which will they do in the tournament here? Texas Tech Red Raiders are the only Big 12 team to beat Houston this season, which should count for something. Is it going to count for a deep run in the tournament? We shall see. And then we've got our 2 seeds, Michigan State Spartans. Their best player's dad, this is my favorite fact that I came across, their best player's dad won a title at Michigan State 25 years ago for the same coach, Tom Izzo. He has literally been there forever. Alabama Crimson Tide, they play the fastest pace in America, but their defense is kind of just a polite suggestion. So looking for winning a shootout any of those games. Tennessee Volunteers, their coach might retire after the end of this season. So is the team running through walls for him, or are they kind of running out of energy? In the St. John's Red Storm, their coach literally has a Vice TV reality show following him around all season. Nothing says locked in like constant camera crews. All right, and then we've got the 1 seeds. All right, these are the ones. Their path is supposedly the easiest, but the pressure is also the highest. We've got the Auburn Tigers. They lost their last 2 regular season games. History says that doesn't mean too much. One of their key players is actually older than Zion Williamson, so at least they have some veteran leadership. The Duke Blue Devils, their best player is younger than the Call of Duty franchise. Let that sink in. Yes, you and I, we are old. The Houston Cougars, they've made 4 straight Sweet 16s, but they can never seem to get over the hump. Never won that title. So is this the breakthrough year, or is it just going to be another repeat and early exit for them? And last, we have the Florida Gators. Their best player started playing point guard this year, and somehow he's become elite overnight. So feels like there's some sort of glitch there. We'll see how that plays out. Okay, so now here's the question. Now that you have the rundown of all those teams, well, who is actually going to win the championship? And this is based off of some history, but I'm not going to dig too deep into stats because we honestly don't care, and we just need to fake like we know what we're talking about. So this is the foolproof, definitely not going to backfire formula for picking a national champion. First of all, be a top 3 seed. 22 of the last 24 champs were 1, 2, or 3 seeds. So if you're picking a 4 seed or lower, just just know Steve from accounting is already laughing at you. Don't do that. Go for a top 3 seed. Okay, Ken Palm does all sorts of analytics and ratings, but basically, no team in the last 20 years has won the title without being top 20 in both offense and defense. So if your team can't score and defend both, you're probably throwing your bracket in the shredder. Also, elite guard play. The team with the best guards usually win. So if you're reliant highly on 7-footers, it often feels like those guys get shut down in big games. And so guard play is definitely what it works. The last time that relying on 7-footers was a consistent strategy in college basketball, it was before TikTok was around. Again, another reminder that you and I are both old. Then also, and this is true not just for winning it all, but also looking for good upset picks, look for experience and depth. So the transfer portal era has made old teams get better because they just have so much more depth and so much more veteran leadership. And so if you are focusing on a team where your top player is a freshman, there might be one of those things you should be a little bit cautious about. So who are the teams that fit that winning formula? Well, based on those rough numbers, it looks like this. You've got Florida. They hit that metric. Auburn, Duke, Houston, Tennessee, and Iowa State. However, I caution you with Iowa State. With Keyshawn Gilbert out, I would probably say to avoid that pick there. So you would not be making a crazy pick to pick Florida, Auburn, Duke, Houston, Tennessee. Now, does that mean they're going to win? Obviously, most of those teams are not going to win, and anybody who hates any of those teams will find and give you reasons why not. But based off of the history of the tournament, you do that. If you want to go slightly contrarian, these are teams that fit outside of those metrics specifically. They maybe have a good offense, but not as good of a defense, or vice versa. But they are certainly Final Four contenders, and they can be ones that maybe can be a little bit sneaky or a little bit different here. So Texas Tech, so they have a strong offense, but their defense needs work. Purdue, they also have an elite offense but need some defensive stability. And they also stumbled, but can they come back together? Kentucky is another explosive offense with defense that's just not quite there. Kansas has a top defense, but an offense that's been all over the place, but with a lot of raw talent. And the Michigan Wolverines, they have 2 7-footers running the offense. And so again, we caution you on just one, but maybe the magic of 2 7-footers. And a lot of people think that they are underrated and underseeded in this tournament. So I would recommend picking from the first list for your champion, but there's other teams there that you could consider to throw into your Final Four and even your finals there. So if you want to summarize, if you want bragging rights over Steve from accounting, we're going to recommend based on the stats. And again, this is not based on any eye test or watching it, just based on the stats and the history. Florida, Auburn, Duke, Houston, Tennessee. Okay, but here's the thing. It's not just about picking winner. You also have to fill in the rest of the bracket. Okay, and you got to remember, in general, the higher seed is going to win most of the time. This is how I always teach my kids and my wife when it's time to do brackets. In general, the better team is going to win. So you generally want to favor higher seeds, and especially number ones early on. Is it possible for a 16 to beat a 1? Of course it's possible. It's happened. But is it likely? No, it's not likely. History says in general it's not likely. Okay. In fact, the championship trend is 13 of the last 17 national champions were number 1 seeds. And we've already kind of covered a little bit about that. In addition, you want to be cautious with number 2 seeds, especially super deep. Remember, they're not supposed to make the Final Four. The 2 seeds aren't. They're supposed to be 4-1 seeds. In the last 11 tournaments, only one number 2 seed has made the championship game. So they look good on paper, but there's usually a reason why they're seeded number 2. There's usually some sort of flaw in there that gets done. Okay, now we get to the kind of the fun part of picking your bracket and anticipating the upsets. We're going to break this down here shortly as well. Look for that 12 versus 5 seed matchup. It seems like pretty much every year at least one 12 seed upsets a 5 seed. It's pretty much a March Madness law at this time. Pick a 12 seed underdog, but don't get carried away by doing too many. Again, you also need to monitor teams' injuries. So Duke they're saying Cooper Flag is going to be back for the entire tournament here, but I would certainly pay attention to that up until the very end. And like we mentioned earlier, Iowa State has lost Keyshawn Gilbert for the tournament, and there probably will be more injury news that'll come out after I release this. And I promise you, I'm not doing another March Madness video about how to pick this. This is all you get. All right. You also want to think about conference strength, or relative overseeding of it. So the SEC has 14 teams in the tournament this year, which is absolutely record setting. Does that mean that they're loaded this year, or does that mean that they're just overrated? I don't know. That's going to come down to maybe your personal biases if you're pro or anti-SEC. But there's either a chance for a historical sweep of, the Final Four, the Elite Eight, or there's a chance that they could just utterly bomb. Or somewhere in the middle is probably the most likely thing. Also, you can look and be alert for things of historical consistency. Gonzaga has a Sweet 16 streak of 9 straight trips to the Sweet 16. That is the second longest in history. So, and again, I always like Gonzaga coming in an underdog role. The unfortunate thing is they've got an 8-9 matchup followed by an 8-1 matchup. So an 8 seed is probably about the worst seed that you can have. 8 or 9 is about the worst, because you're going to face two really tough matchups right out of things, because most of the time that 1 seed. Now, there are overhyped teams, and some of this you have to just go off of, but in general, the overall number 1 seed tends to be often a failure. Only 4 out of 20 of the last overall number 1 seeds have won the title. And 8 of the overall number 1 seeds didn't even survive the Sweet 16. Who is it this year? Well, it's Auburn. So we're going to do that. All right, so March Madness upsets. Who is busting brackets? Well, we're going to give you some thoughts based off of some really, really deep analysis and just complete guesswork. But first category we're going to have here are one-hit wonders. These are teams. I would suggest you pick 1 to 2 of teams like these. Even if you don't like my teams, pick 1 to 2. These are teams that are going to win probably 1 game and then be knocked out in the next round. They're really fun. They're fun upsets, but they usually don't have staying power. So these are a couple ones that we're pointing out based off of just some history and stuff like that. The High Point Panthers is a 13 seed. They are on a 14-game winning streak. The team is on fire, but they haven't faced competition yet. The Montana Grizzlies, their team that has been lighting it up from 3. So again, a lot of times all you need is a team to just have one on-fire game for that. The Akron Zips, they have quiet underdog vibes going on, and they have been dominating since December. The Lipscomb Bisons, they are 3-point bombers. Again, a lot of times in these tournaments, a team that can just catch fire from 3 can just absolutely decimate a better team. And again, because it's winner take all single game, they can make a big difference. And then the UC San Diego Tritons, they are on a 15-game win streak, and they have momentum to make a splash. So those would be some possible ones. Again, probably 1 to 2. Those are, highly unlikely, but they're really fun to cheer for if you hit them right and you have them picked on your bracket. It just makes it extra fun. All right, these are some Sweet 16 underdog picks. And so, again, I would suggest maybe picking 1 to 2 here if you want to make a really bold call to win both games, both their Thursday and Saturday or their Friday and Sunday games this upcoming weekend. Drake Bulldogs. They have 30 wins already. They're a top 40 defense since January, and they're really good at turning the ball over. So that's one. Pick them if, I'm going to give you a reason to pick these guys too. Pick them if you want a proven squad with elite defense and a somewhat bracket-friendly path. All right, the San Diego State Aztecs, they made the 2023 National Championship, and they have their core players, and their defense will make you wish you stay home. If you are a believer that defense wins championships, or at least can get you 2 wins. There you go. All right, this is my personal favorite. This is the team I'll probably be cheering for the most. The Grand Canyon Lopes. They are a mid-major. They upset St. Mary's last year, and their coach, Bryce Drew, also has had his own magic when he was a player in March Madness. And so if you want a Cinderella with kind of that coach who's been there before, that might be the pick for you. The New Mexico Lobos. They're led by Richard Pitino, and they have the best defense in the Mountain West. If you like high-powered mid-majors who have proven they can beat some big names. That's a good pick there. The VCU Rams as an 11 seed. Ryan Odom knows what it's like to pull off an upset. Again, we mentioned he was the author of the 16-1, beating Virginia with UMBC. So if you want to have a coach who's already done it before, he would be a great one. And VCU, again, has that pedigree. McNeese Cowboys also, they're top 10 in three-point shooting, and they force a lot of turnovers. So if you kind of like that balanced Cinderella that's got both some offense and defense, and then, of course, if you want to go with the Ivy League pick, I often just feels like these Ivy League teams come in, they're not really overwhelmed with everything. They beat Auburn last year, and a lot of people think they're better this year. I'm going to totally butcher this name, but Bez Mabeng can hoop, and he knows what he's doing out there. So if you want a team that's going to outthink their way. All right, if you want to go super bold and pick one of those teams to go all the way to the Elite Eight to win 3 games, I'm just going to give you 3 teams to think about. If I pick any of them, I'll probably go Grand Canyon, but we're going to go with Grand Canyon, Drake, and San Diego State. All right, now, I know that's a whole lot of stuff, so I'm going to put this in at the end. So if you're just skipping to the end, what do you want to do? All right, here's the too long didn't read of everything. Stick with the 1, 2, or 3 seeds. They've been the most successful through the season, and they also tend to be most successful in the tournament. You want a balance of risk and safety. You want upsets, but don't go overboard, because most of those teams are going to be eliminated after 2 or 3 games. And so you don't want your bracket full of upsets in the Final Four. It's just not going to happen most years. Elite defense tends to win, so look for teams with top-tier defenses. I'll put a link to the Ken Pom ratings in case you care a little bit more about digging in. But you can kind of figure some of this stuff out without really knowing anything about college basketball. And again, I'm always a fan that experience matters. Teams that are older, veteran, teams that have been there before, who have been on the verge of winning. A lot of times, just kind of those older veteran players or veteran coaching experience can really bring teams through tough stretches in the tournament. Okay, don't pick utter chaos. It's March Madness, but not total chaos. If you want to beat Steve from accounting, you need to be making a lot of solid picks throughout as well. And lastly, just do the same thing that I do ultimately in the end. I just go with my gut. You know, you can study stats all day and be just as lost as when you started. So if you're not sure, just go with your gut. Or even better, just pick whatever mascot you like the best. That's what my daughter has done, and that's how she beat all of us last year. So good luck with your brackets, and go beat Steve from accounting.